Recording.
Okay, good.
Okay, folks, so welcome to the Bill Law Award event. Great to see so many of you on the call, and I expect I'm doing a 5-minute introduction. I expect quite a few people will that will give space for a few more people to arrive as well. So I'm just going to set the scene before the main event. I know it says NICEC events under my face on the screen, but I should introduce myself. I'm Pete Robertson, and I'm the current chair of NICEC, the National Institute for Career Education and Counselling. And now I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to set the scene and explain why the Bill Law Award is important to us. So that's really all I'm going to do. So I won't steal anyone else's thunder, hopefully. So NICEC is a learned society, and it brings together academics, researchers, crucially practitioners, and leaders or thought leaders in the field of career development. That's really what we're about. And I guess it's special because it connects people across boundaries, across research and practice, different sectors in careers work, schools work, private practice, higher education, many other settings. So it's a community that brings people together who have a different perspective on careers work. What they all have in common is that they're careers nerds. In some form or another. So in a way, it's a club for careers nerds. But fortunately, these days, it's cool to be a nerd. So if you want to hang out with the cool kids, you might want to consider becoming a member of NICEC at some point. And membership details can be found on the web. If you're a real hardcore careers nerd, you might even consider looking at becoming a fellow of NICEC, and we will be in the coming months recruiting for some small number of new fellows. Now, two things that are really important to NICEC as a community. One is encouraging practitioner researchers, helping people to bridge the gap between research and practice, supporting evidence-based practice, if you like. So equipping people to take on that role of being a practitioner who weaves research into their work. That's one thing that's important to us. So forming a bridge between research and practice. Another thing that's really important to us is encouraging new voices and new perspectives in the field. I think that's something NICEC's new thinking is something that NICEC is very much about. So that's why this event is kind of like a highlight in the NICEC calendar, because it ticks both of those boxes, really. It's about research and practice. It's about new voices today. So that's really very much at the core of the spirit of what NICEC's about. So that's why this event's so important to us. I should just mention it's called the Bill Law event for a reason. The late Bill Law was a founding father of NICEC, and he's commemorated in this award. And I guess he was someone who was renowned for innovative approaches to careers work. He loved new ideas, he loved new perspectives, came up with quite a lot of them himself, but he loved to see that in others as well. So this event is exactly the kind of thing he would approve of. So it's very fitting that his name is attached to this award. I'm sure he would approve of it. That's really all I wanted to say. So if we move on to the next slide now, you've got an agenda for today. And at this point, I'm going to pass you over to Laura Walker, who together with some colleagues in NICEC has done the hard work in pulling this event together. And Laura's going to explain to you what's going to happen this evening.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pete. So I'm one of these career nerds, clearly, which I'm very happy to be, and to host today's event on behalf of the Bill Law judging panel. So I will just give a quick shout out to Elnez, Janet, Rosemary, and Bob, who together we had the pleasure of reviewing this year's amazing submissions. And I can safely say, I think that if this had been in 2019 and this had been the level of the submissions, I probably would not have won. So I'm going to be grateful that the passage of time has improved the quality so significantly. So I think all of our finalists, the 7 finalists today, which you will hear more from, can be super proud of being finalists in this year in 2026. And we're really excited to hear more of your new voices a bit later. Today's session is very simple. I'll hand over to Emma in a second, and we're going to have a really practical but also a very topical session with her. So we're going to be talking about practitioner-led research. If you're a researcher or not, I think you'll find this super interesting and hopefully inspiring. And then we'll have the short and sweet presentations for our finalists, which is always a challenge to squeeze such quality research into 3 minutes. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have our announcement of the winner. So I will stop sharing and hand over to our multi-talented, multidisciplinary Emma. Excuse me, and you can briefly introduce yourself if that's okay, and then dive in.
Thank you, Laura. I'll bring up my first slide there, and hopefully you give me the thumbs up that you can see, hopefully, just that main cover slide on the screen and nothing else.
That's
Brilliant.
correct.
Thank you very much, Laura. Right, I shall fire on. I'll try not to run over time. I'll make sure that we've got plenty of time to hear from today's finalists as well. Lovely to be here. I apologise if there's any noise in the background. It's uncustomarily sunny in Glasgow today, as I imagine it may well be in other places. So I've got my windows open. We're in power washing season within suburbia, so you may hear some noise from the outside. And also the schools break up here in Scotland a little bit sooner than elsewhere. And I have 3 very noisy children running about somewhere in the distance, hopefully being kept at bay. So if you hear anything in the background, let me know. But if not, I'll fire on. Hopefully no disruptions. Get started. So a warm welcome, first of all, to everyone who's here today. You're here because you're interested in robust careers research, which really matters for all the reasons that we've just heard from our introduction there from Pete and from Laura. You may be here because you've submitted work for the Bill Law Award. You may be on the shortlist or not, but you've completed research this year and maybe have also felt like this maybe quite wasn't the space for your research to shine, but you're still interested to find out what people who've submitted to this award did submit and what that covers. I'm particularly keen to hear from anyone who is just at that starting point. Please do get in touch with me if you want to have a chat with somebody who's keen to hear from people who are just getting started with their research, because I know that you could well be in the audience today and this is you just kind of putting your toe in the water, getting the first hint of what might it be like to be a practitioner researcher. So this event might be something that's there to inspire you. I'll put my contact details up in a second, but like everybody else within NICEC and within the wider career community who has been supporting practitioner-led research, please do reach out to any of us if you are trying to get started and just need a wee bit of support and morale boosting to help you get there, and some practical tips. We're always open to that. You might be here because you're just generally interested in what is happening on the front line of careers, practice and research, and for that reason, it's particularly important that you do attend these events and find out what's going on, what are people interested in, what are people looking at in the careers sector at the moment. You could also be thinking about what next for your own current project. If you're presenting today and being shortlisted, if you've got something underway, you might be thinking about where to go for that. I'm going to try and talk a little bit today about the bridge between practice and research, but for many of us, what I do want to reassert is the importance of these awards, but also the importance of learning about research processes. The process of learning how to conduct research is often the most important part of the journey. Learning to critique the research of others more effectively, and being reinvigorated to find new sources of knowledge, developing an ongoing curiosity about what's happening within the research space. All of these things are really, really important, and it's not just about not just about award ceremonies, although today is about an award ceremony. It's also about all of the processes that we go through that puts research at the heart of what we're doing as we improve and learn from practitioners who are at the front line to develop knowledge and tools and techniques that help us in our daily work. So just some comments, some links there, so you can, as I say, feel free to get in touch with me if you do wish. I'm an interdisciplinary academic, as Laura introduced me. I'm based in Scotland and I've got over 20 years experience of education and careers. Been asked along today because, as some of you may know, I wrote the Career Professionals Guide to Research, which was published by Trotman last year. I'm a real advocate for practitioner-led research, and something that comes up whenever I'm speaking. I also want to kind of reassert to some degree, I'm an ex-full-time academic. I do still do some part-time academic work, but I'm also like to reinforce that rewarding research doesn't have to be cited within academia. And many of the projects that have been submitted for the Bill Law Award and those shortlisted today sit out with academia, indeed, as standalone practitioner-led research projects. So why does it matter? Why does it matter that practitioner-led research is being given a platform and championed and promoted as much as we can? Career professionals are in a really important position in relation to knowledge and how that's gained and how that's shared. It's really important that frontline practitioners make a contribution to the research agenda. We need to see stronger links between the careers profession, academics, policymakers, and everybody within that wider professional space. It's often through the research that comes from practitioners that we do find out about what are underexplored issues. It's very easy to get stuck in a cycle of, we've looked at this, now we're going to look at it again or reevaluate it and look at it from a different approach. Well, actually, what comes from practitioner-led research is very often brand new, underexplored issues and topics that we're not hearing about. It's also, I mean, obviously, research, an absolutely brilliant form of ongoing CPD, which is something we all have to be committed to when we're working in the practitioner space. As I say, you're in a unique position to conduct research. The knowledge and experience that you develop from working in frontline practice adds just such value to the research that you do. It is an essential part of the research landscape. It's an essential part of the knowledge building that we do within the wider sector. Also, your perspective is not just of interest to fellow practitioners, it's of interest to a wide range of stakeholders. And being able to promote and present and engage with those stakeholders in a range of ways, not necessarily in the traditional academic ways, is what makes your research also even more valuable. I'm saying all this because I want you to not feel like you don't have a role. I often get asked about, well, it's, research is just for academics. It's just for people, you do a master's or you do a PhD or you're within academia, you're a lecturer or a researcher within an academic role. Absolutely not the case. You have all the abilities to and the space to be able to develop those research skills to exactly as high a level as anybody else. So it might feel daunting at first, but please don't feel intimidated by the work that's going on elsewhere by other people who are just taking a different approach. So I want to just talk a little bit about how it might be that you're looking to find perhaps a next project or develop into the next piece of research that you're thinking about. And I'm starting to kind of alluded to this already, but the type of research that you do depends entirely on the topic and the purpose and what you're hoping to do. A useful inquiry, a piece of research doesn't have to involve huge numbers of participants. It doesn't have to take months of planning and investigation to get there. What is of most important is thinking about how you engage with the primary audience. And your primary audience is who most needs to access that research. And it's really important when you're just getting started on a project or you've got an idea for something else. You might have done a big piece previously. You might have done a full master's dissertation. You could be coming out the end of a PhD, but you could also be thinking, actually, what I want to do is completely different. It's not what we're expected when we think about a research project. Sometimes we get bogged down very easily in what we expect a research project to be, when we could be a wee bit more open-minded about that. I'm very keen to encourage people to move away from kind of the narrow academic publishing parameters and then working back to other audiences and making them a secondary audience. And for a lot of things, so small scale research projects, the absolutely best audience for the research that you're doing may be your team, it may be your department, it may even be your clients. It may be the people that you work with. If you're in a school, a research inquiry into a topic that's currently really important to the young people in your school is as valuable, and in some cases more valuable and more useful on a day-to-day basis than some of the really heavy-going research that we see published in the loftiest of academic papers. So your priority always has to be on who needs this most. And a quick way of saying that is, size just does not matter in this area. Conducting a project also, and this is something that I do want to, kind of encourage people to think about a little bit more, is there's some brilliant researchers out there who aren't the people who, you don't always want to be the person that stands up and talks about your research. You might want to work in a team. You might want to pass your research on to somebody else to make use of that research. You may be someone who's happier on paper than talking. You may be somebody who's happier talking and presenting than on paper. So just be mindful that you need to think about how best you can convey your research to the audience that you're wanting to work with in a way that suits you. Make sure you're putting yourself at the heart of this as well. If you heard me at the National Research Conference, this is, very much my feelings on this, never going to change. Just because you've done a research project doesn't mean that you have to share it far and wide. It is as useful to you to have done a research project, and as I said at the very start of this, to have done a research project, to have enjoyed it, and to have developed critical skills to move on and be better placed to critique the research of others. A nice slide now that I made for something else, but on the day the slide failed, so I've just put this up so I can get some use out of it. And that's a message as well, that whatever you do in your research and whatever you're doing in your practice, usually even if you've had to park it for a short period of time, it'll come back and it'll find a use at some stage in the future. Just some examples there of what practitioner-led research may involve: reviewing interventions in practice, evaluating tools, methods, processes. You might already have a burning desire inside you to research something or something else that's bothered you for a while. You can think about enhancing the reputation of the sector, contributing to the knowledge base, all kinds of things. And all the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis provide really strong routes for research projects. It might be on your own behalf, it might be on your employer's behalf. If you're involved in simple things like evaluation in the workplace, these are small-scale research projects to make your practice more effective and efficient and impact future decision-making about service delivery. So there's a lot that you're already around with, testing approaches, exploration of trends, things that are happening that might not be recorded, how's policy versus what it looks like on the front line. These are all things that there are so many topics to explore, and it's really useful trying to get that cited within the broad area of interest for when you started. But above all, practice-informed research is about a really effective inquiry that leads to some kind of progress. So just in terms of helping you just with a few practical kind of thinking positions and again, have a think about which of these suits you best. So you may have done something that's been really theoretical. You may have been on the shortlist today, and you may have done a piece of research that's been kind of academic, quite heavily theoretical. But you might find that after doing that, you're more leaning towards wanting to do more practice-driven work. And we've got two kind of overarching positions in terms of where practitioner-led research fits. Theoretically driven is generally looking at what's out there already, reviewing the theory, reviewing the policy, and evaluating how far is that going to work? Could we improve on this? Is it doing really well? What can we learn from this? So re-evaluation existing models, theories, looking at and trying out new approaches, reviewing, re-evaluating models, methods that are out there, and looking at previous research and maybe revisiting that and moving into new areas. Now, for practitioners, it may be that your research could be one of these two approaches, but there's often quite a bit of crossover between the two as well. And having a sense of where you're going with it can be really useful, and where you're starting from. Particularly as well important is to note that, this can be desk-based. You don't always have to go out and find new research participants. Secondary data can be as useful when you're doing this kind of research as anything else, data that's already been collected and you're re-evaluating. or you might have new empirical research as well, collecting fresh data. Your practice-driven projects are much more likely to be a direct response to what you're seeing in practice. That could be learning from what trends and things that you're observing, or it could be looking at new routes to think about best practice models that you might be wanting to share with the wider sector. Thinking about evidence, if you're being asked to go away and think about, is this working? What's the evidence to back that up? We've got a new issue, a new problem, the new trends, all of those sorts of things. And at the bottom one I've put there, addressing misconceptions, a really important kind of unpicking of, well, we think this, but actually what's really happening is, and those sorts of gaps that we see in everyday practice that we want to just kind of understand a bit more about. And then just coming towards the conclusion for this now is, I always want you to think about you within the research landscape. Always focus on why you're the best person to lead a project. What are you bringing? What is your USP in this? Why, as a careers practitioner, researcher, does it matter that you're leading on this kind of work? Is there anyone else who could do this? Could they do it any better than you? What's your unique perspective on this? What are you going to bring to it that others can't? Look at who else has maybe researched a topic and how well they did it and what they missed out. What else did you need? And to think about, what do you bring to any research project? And I promise you, if you've done your current project within academia as a master's or doctoral student, the floor will not fall away from you after you finish. You will go on, and more likely than not, the next project you do, it might even be more useful to practitioners because you'll be basing it on really good skills, knowledge, tools and techniques that you've got as a researcher, that you've developed, that you understand what you're good at now. And your next project, more likely than not, will be better than the one that you're currently doing. So for every project, what you need to know: checklist, aims, objectives, research questions, justification and purpose, methodology with ethics, timeline, output, and this is my thing that I always go on about: crisis avoidance. What could go wrong? Now, I don't like to come in as the voice of doom, but overestimate your time and always have a backup plan. That's what that's what people are looking for. If you want to pitch an idea to anybody about what research you want to do, whether it's big, small, or somewhere in between, have a really clear kind of line for anybody who's going to come to you and say, well, I like you, I like your idea. How are we going to get there and what could go wrong? Always be able to sell. Is your idea worth researching? Who or what will benefit? Who are your stakeholders? What's the contribution likely to be? What's the contribution to the sector, the workplace, clients, and so on? But I'm not going to leave you just with that and say, off you go and work out how to do that. I'm also going to let you know that on the book that I wrote last year, there are some free resources available. So if you are thinking, I'd like to start planning a new project, I've just highlighted there in yellow on the screen, you'll see there's a couple of downloads that you can go to use as a project planning template for your next research project, should you be thinking about how to get started. There's some other useful things in there as well that you can download without having bought my book. I'm a big fan of stuff being available for free for people. And if you do want to buy my book at any point, there's currently a 25% off if you use the Bill Law discount there. I'll pop that in the chat as well. I always like to finish on a freebie though, so please do download anything that might be useful to you. And as you say, if you're going to buy a book, always buy it with a discount would be my top tip. And thank you very much. I'm going to fire back over to you now, Laura, so that we can hear from the people whose research we're going to be learning about today, who really matter.
Amazing. Thank you, Emma. Personally found it very inspiring. And as you said, once you've finished one research project, this is maybe a word of warning for our current researchers, you will probably do another one and it will probably be even more impactful. So I certainly thought I would not do another after my master's, and here I am doing a doctorate or finishing a doctorate. So you never know. Okay, so as you said, some really useful tips there. Thank you for the inspiration. As a practitioner, I am a big fan of practitioner-led, and also we know that was Bill's primary intent, was to bridge between research and practice. And I can safely say that all 7 research projects that we're going to hear about from our finalists later do this beautifully. So yeah, thank you so much, Emma. I appreciate all of that. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive in. So I'm going to share my screen in a second. Here we go. Bringing that up, hopefully. Great. Can somebody, Emma, can you just let me know that you can? Yeah, great. Okay, so we're going to hear from all of our, well, 6 of our 7. So unfortunately, Anastasia has got an illness. She's with us. She's excited to hear about other people's research and their work, but unfortunately she can't speak. So she won't actually be able to present herself today. So we will enjoy her slide, but unfortunately we won't actually hear from her. We're going to start with Dean. There was no magic behind this order, I should say, and there's no clue as to who the winner is. It's just purely who sent me the slides. So it's nothing scientific in this. So first of all, we're going to hear from Dean and then we're going to work our way through. I'm going to keep an eye on the time to make sure that we have a fair time allocation for everyone. So I'll give you a nudge when you're getting close within 15 seconds to make sure that we are fair and representing everyone. Okay, so I'm hoping that Dean's going to come off mute in a second and we're going to see your slides, and just give me a little nudge or I will be on it, ready to move you on to the next one. So welcome, Dean.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being part of this platform. Yeah, I think I can say I'll start now. All right. My name is Dean Majawedza. I'll be presenting my article titled When Context Matters, Revisiting Social-Cognitive Theory, Career Theory in an Equal South African School System. Next slide, please. Okay, so the problem is South African schools are highly unequal. Quantile shapes access to resources, opportunities, and career guidance. SCCT recognizes context, but often underplays the structural inequalities. So based on this backdrop, career development does not happen in equal conditions. Next slide, please. So the study was informed by one SCCT intervention, which was implemented across all schools. SCC measures four main constructs, which is self-efficacy. Can I do this? Outcome expectation. If I do this, what will happen? Goals and context. It had 240 learners across all 3 schools, and it followed a mixed method design with the fusion of quasi-experimental design, action research, and behavioral conditions or changes were measured using the career maturity inventory and the career decision-making self-efficacy short forms. Then the qualitative aspect was used to gather information about the learners' experiences of the intervention. Next slide, please. So key findings, 3 patterns of impact were discovered from the intervention. The same intervention produced different developmental effects depending on context. In high socioeconomic status, it had a reinforcing factor, strengthening existing advantages. Learners in this context started with the highest base compared to the other learners from the other schools. Then from the middle socioeconomic status, it had a protective effect. It maintained stability and direction. Learners in this context, especially the control group, had a significant decline, whereas the ones in the experimental group had the upward movement. Then in the lower socioeconomic status, it had a transformative effect. It created new opportunities and expand possibilities. Learners in this context indicated that it was their first time experiencing career guidance, structured career guidance intervention, and they started with the lowest base compared to the other schools. So the same intervention had different developmental effects, which we just saw right now on the screen. Next slide, please. So why this matters? Career guidance is context sensitive, not neutral. One size fits all interventions are insufficient. Educational policy must address structural inequalities that shape career development. Guidance programs should be differentiated across school contexts. Effective career guidance requires psychological development alongside systematic support. The policy implication is equity-focused career guidance should be embedded within South African education policy, which is currently lacking at the moment. Then in conclusion, this study shows that career guidance is not simply about helping learners choose futures. It is about ensuring that context does not determine whose futures are possible. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for getting us off to such a great start, Dean. Really appreciate that. Well done. Okay. Thank you. Our next presenter is Francesca, and I am just going to mention, as she does here, that there is a trigger warning. So there's a quite sensitive subject matter. I mentioned that we've got a real diversity of topics, and this is definitely the case with Francesca. We're going to be talking about perinatal baby loss. There are some resources which we can provide into the chat if this is something that's also affecting you. Welcome, Francesca.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for that introduction and the trigger warning. I'm going to be running you all through my research today. So can we move to the first slide, and we're going to start with why. So I chose to research the impact of early perinatal loss on women's careers because firstly, that's my personal experience. Secondly, there's a general silence around baby loss in work and in research. And thirdly, these earlier losses are a bit easier to minimise when all losses are disenfranchised in nature anyway. We're looking at the theories. Women's career theories don't mention baby loss. So I took a feminist approach in this research across the whole thing. I wanted to explore if there were gendered aspects at play in organisations to do with this grief response and this ideal worker concept. I used a systems theory framework because careers are best understood within a context which includes individual, interpersonal, organisational and societal factors. And my aims were simple: to reduce the silence, to listen and to explore how women experience baby loss in the workplace, their decision to disclose and how they feel loss has impacted their career over time. How did I do it? As I say, a feminist approach, which is an ethics of care and collaboration. That was really important because it was emotionally demanding for my participants and for me. I spoke to 11 women, some 5 years, some 20 years after their loss. And then I conducted analysis by voice-centered relational framework, which is lovely and allows exploration across these 4 different levels. Next slide, please. What did I find? Okay, I know there's a lot on here, but it's really important to me to show you the words of the women. They recalled lots of these conversations they'd had word for word, even 20 years later. I found baby loss had impacted women's careers, both at the time and since. Careers were really important to these women. My findings were structured into 5 themes, 4 of which ran sequentially, starting with women being changed by loss, through deciding to disclose, through the experience of returning to work. There are structural and behavioural issues there, such as withdrawal, through to the reforming, some of which was achieved by work. And it has led to some of these women campaigning for better care for bereaved parents at work. So the central aspects were loss of confidence, withdrawal, recovery. And surrounding these 4 themes were the 5th theme of the systemic norms which influence the whole landscape, such as it's an invalid grief, grief is negative, and women are supposed to be mothers. And these influence all the other themes and are in turn influenced by the other themes. So I found it was really complex, and it was best understood within the context of systems theory framework and these gendered organisational aspects. So it's complex. What does that mean for the implications? Well, firstly, baby loss is having an impact, so it should be acknowledged by women's career theories. Secondly, should be acknowledged by organisations. There are some quite straightforward recommendations. I propose coaching as an intervention, like coaching for maternity returners, loss of confidence. I see so many similarities here. And it should be acknowledged by all of us for the societal change. So that's where we come in. And these bereaved mothers are campaigning, they're creating the working environment to better support all those returning from loss. And I think we should join them. And I'd love to hear from any of you if you're at all interested in this work. Thank you. And if we just flick through, I don't know if we've got the support slide on there.
Yes, I've put that in the chat as well.
Oh, it's in the chat. Perfect. Thank you.
Amazing. And there's the support slide that's in the chat.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Thanks, Francesca. So contact information also. Right. I'm going to invite Sarah to come off mute and to present your single slide in a second. I thought I'll give you a holding one. Hi, Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Derby on their master's course. And my research started from the kind of practice aspect. I work with a lot of students in schools and they come to me with quite a lot of preconceived notions. And there was a huge gap in the research where a lot of people look at why people go to university or their courses, but they don't look at the micro decisions within that choice. So I started from the idea of what impacts a student's decision about university, and looking particularly at this idea that choice is very different to decision making. Decision making alludes to both power and constraint. And I was desperate to do quantitative research. So as a teacher, my methodology, I introduced the Diamond 9 tool. This forced participants to rank 9 different variables that were important to them within the context of a decision that had already been made to go to higher education and within the context of a decision on making a course. The reason the Diamond 9 is important is it allows for middle layer non-decision effectively. They don't have to rank from 1 to 9. They can put things that are tied, which is really important. And what I was looking at is within a household, is there a transmission of value from parents to students or parents to child when they are making this decision? I did this by surveying over 100 parents and students, and I also paired parents and students within a household, and I used the data to create 2 different quantitative analyses. One, which has the Diamond 9 that you can see on the screen, which averaged out the demographic groups by polar quintile, which is the advancement to university, by household income, by parental background to HE, and one which looked at comparisons directly within a household as well. And the findings were really important because what it found was that the more advantaged students shared far, far more in common in the micro values with their parents than the less advantaged students who had quite different experiences and expectations in their choice, particularly around hot and cold information and where they were getting their information from. So it evaluated the shared value that demographic groups had. And for practice, that's really important because when students come to our doors as career counsellors, it's really crucial that we have value elicitation at our heart because they are all coming to us with very, very different backgrounds. And those backgrounds are not just informing the choice to go, but within that choice, what they feel they can and can't do and where they are getting that information from in order to make that decision. That was my research.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, I'm welcoming Ash to the floor for her presentation. Brilliant. I can't believe how good these are so far. Ash, pressure. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Laura, for the introduction. My name is Ash Mukherjee. I am the careers lead in a further education college. As you can see behind me, I've not changed my screen. And I have a special interest in researching areas of social mobility, careers development, and AI impact on careers. Today, I would like to share my research, which is inspired by Bill Law's work on community interaction and career ecology. It all started with a very simple question. If apprenticeship participation is growing such brilliantly across north of England, why do progression outcomes remain so uneven? Next slide, please. As you can see from the slide, fantastic numbers. When we talk about apprenticeship success, we often celebrate starts, participations, and completions. But for the apprentices themselves, the real question isn't whether they completed. It's whether the apprenticeships led to meaningful career progression. My research identified what I call the Northern Apprenticeship Paradox. So across the northern regions, apprenticeship participation is strong, but progression outcomes remain uneven. We have become very good at getting people into apprenticeships, but much less effective at ensuring those apprentices move forwards afterwards. This research proposes framework to support the same via both qualitative as well as quantitative data from employers, apprentices, as well as tutors and apprenticeship facilitators. Next slide, please. So using Bill Law's community interaction theory, I explored apprenticeships through career ecological lens. Employers consistently told us that progression isn't simply about an apprentice's ability. It is shaped by opportunity structures, local labor markets, funding, vacancies, and organizational capacity. So in other words, careers are not individual achievements alone. They are a product of systems, as we all know. Next slide, please. The contribution of this research is both practical and theoretical. It proposes a Northern apprenticeship progression framework that shifts attention from participation to progression. If apprenticeships are to fulfill their promise of social mobility and economic opportunity, success should not be measured by who can start or who is starting an apprenticeship, but by the futures of the apprentices which they are able to build because of it. Next slide, please. So for me, this research is ultimately about one simple idea. Apprenticeship should not just open doors, they should help people move through them. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ash. That was inspiring. Okay, brilliant. There's lots of claps going on. I can see the reactions. I don't know if you can. Okay, so unfortunately, as I said, Anastasia has no voice, so she won't be joining us. But she did do some fascinating research, which hopefully we can hear about through another vehicle, another way, when she's better. But it was to do with, as you can see, being in transition related to immigration. Okay, so I'm going to welcome Hope to the floor. Hi, Hope.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Is it working?
Yes.
I'm having technical issues.
Well done to all
the well done to all the shortlisted people on here, and well done. It's lovely to hear all the research. My focus came from kind of my primary school teaching background, as well as my work currently in at FE College. I do work with Ash, so it's lovely to see a fellow colleague here. So well done, Ash. You set the standard. So what I wanted to focus on really was the fact that I feel that sometimes SEND learners or students with additional needs get kind of swooped into the whole mainstream approach of careers guidance. And sometimes it's a bit of a deeper situation where we need to think about how they approach careers guidance and how we approach careers guidance. So my background with teaching, currently a school and community liaison officer, I spent lots of time supporting students with educational needs. I've written the HCPs, etc. I know it can be a really difficult time for certain students and all students to decide exactly what they want to do. So next slide, please. I'll explain my CST SEND framework. So I held kind of some data in regards to a practice-based qualitative approach. I worked with 24 providers around the country, so in England, 24 professionals who were careers leaders, teachers, specialist provision holders, and also the local authority who are involved in the HCPs, answered lots of qualitative questions. I looked for themes that kind of were drawn out of this data. It was very questionnaire based, and then I followed up with some of them through video call. It was really, really good to hear their experiences on the job, so the practical elements of this experience and how we can really support SEND learners in a practical way. I focused on recurring patterns, and those kind of three main patterns that I've written just on the screen there were that some students with SEND, or 71% of them, have difficulty articulating what they want to do. 67% were experiencing low confidence in those decisions, and I'm sure we can all agree that's a mainstream situation as well. And 58% had limited experiences, basically, that could support their choice of career or their next steps. So to me, there was a barrier there, and it wasn't about the learner's needs and the fact they weren't able to articulate. It's the fact they weren't supported to articulate, and it all comes down to that experience. So my argument for the CST SEND, or my message, is that SEND learners don't build career understanding by making decisions. They build it through their experiences. So they need that support, as all learners do, but specifically SEND learners, I think, sometimes are missed in this system. Next slide, please. So the career sense-making theory, I've created kind of a cycle theory, a 4-stage cycle, and this is hopefully to implement practically into schools and colleges. It is currently being kind of practiced or guinea-pigged at our college at the moment alongside the Link 2 Foundation learning students, but I hope to make this much more wider scale and learn lots more from this. I'm a first-time research student, so it's all very exciting. 4-stage cycle, so experience, participating into real environments, the emotion that they're getting from that experience and how it answers their kind of pathway questions. How do they feel when they do something? Pattern recognition, so what kind of strengths are coming out of there, what are the students' needs and what values do they hold when they're doing something. For example, working in a cafe, do they like being in a team, do they like working with others, or are they quite independent? And then supporting that interpretation, so skilled staff or teachers working with these students to help them understand what that means. The kind of answers from the research came that students find tasks easier when they're small and manageable, when conversations are gentle and supportive, and when experiences are repeated, so they really are understanding what's expected and what this might look like down the line. They do believe, the practitioners that answered the research, that reflection happens slowly, so they need that support, and that the students don't want to feel rushed into that decision-making process. So to work at a manageable pace was the main message coming out of this research, with regular interactions. Next slide, please. So based on the research and the video calls and the work within the college and schools that I've done myself, the kind of idea was to create practical tools that can now be translated to support careers guidance in settings for students with SEND. So I created 4 different visual tools that can be used. You can see them kind of listed there. I won't read every single word out so you can have a look, but I'm happy to share these in the future. An experience tracker, so what did they experience? An emotion tag board, which could be a physical creation that the students use, talks about how they're feeling in that situation. Pattern builders, which is when things start to really come to life. So what sort of jobs are they enjoying? What does that look like? What are they good at? What do they find a bit more of a challenge? And then the self-concept compass is where it all kind of ties together, and we support them with what could that next step look like based on these things. I feel strongly that before young people can decide who they want to become, they need opportunities to discover who they are. You can't just expect an answer, and sometimes it's really, you want that answer, but it's very, very tricky to get sometimes. We need to support these students. Next slide, please. That's my main idea there. So CST SEND conceptualizes career understanding. It's a cycle. It's not just a single experience. And these students need that support in order to be able to make that career decision. And it is something that, yes, is small scale at the moment, but I'm hoping we can develop this further. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hope. Great insight. Thank you. And a very under-researched topic. So yeah, brilliant. And last but definitely not least, we have Jenny. Welcome to the floor.
Thank you so much. I'll time myself as well. Hopefully I can stay within 3 minutes. Thank you, everyone. So imagine you're building a career while carrying an invisible weight that nobody else can see. For the 190 million people worldwide living with endometriosis, or endo, this is an everyday reality. Endo is a chronic condition where tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows elsewhere in the body, and symptoms can include severe pain, fatigue, brain fog and depression, often fluctuating unpredictably. Next slide, please. Existing research. Oh, thanks, Laura. Existing research shows that endo, which can take 10 years to diagnose on average and currently has no cure, impacts economic productivity through reduced work participation and stalled career growth. But most of this research is from a medical or economic lens. We know that career development is more holistic. It encapsulates career confidence, decision-making, relationships, as well as salary and progression. So, to truly understand the impact on career as a whole, we need to not only know how people work with endo, but how they build their career alongside it. And only career theory could illuminate this, but it had never been applied to endo before. So I got to work. I interviewed 6 women and analysed their experiences to capture patterns and nuances. Next image, please. Using a theory called social cognitive career theory, I looked at how endo, the individual, and the environment interact to shape multiple elements of career development. What emerged was a story of constant negotiation. Participants described weighing up every opportunity against uncertainty. Will I be well enough? What will my new manager or peers think? Is the risk worth it? Unpredictable symptoms could reduce confidence and narrow perceptions of what actually felt achievable. And as a result, career goals were often recalibrated from career growth and satisfaction to simply sustaining employment. Many also described the invisible work of masking symptoms, overcompensating after absence, and managing professional reputation. Yet, the greatest influence wasn't necessarily the condition itself, It was the workplace environment. Supportive managers, flexibility, and psychological safety enabled confidence, opportunity, and career growth. Unsupportive environments exacerbated barriers. And this really shifts the conversation from how can people with endo cope better to how we can better enable career development for those with endo. Ultimately, this research shows that endo is not just a health or an economic issue, it's a career development one too. Endo can shape how careers are imagined, pursued, and experienced by influencing confidence, decisions, and expectations, all within the recursive context of workplace environment. For managers, it shows that flexibility and supportive management are not simply well-being initiatives, they are career development interventions that can create more inclusive workplaces. And finally, for career development practitioners, it also highlights the importance of understanding individual context, raising awareness and supporting self-advocacy so that people can do more than simply remain in work. They can build careers that are sustainable, meaningful, and fulfilling in spite of endometriosis. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I mean, I'm sure everybody will agree that you all nailed that. And thank you all for keeping to time. You made my job super easy. Such a diverse range of subjects. You can see why we enjoyed reading all of your submissions and encouraged you all, if you were interested in putting your articles through to the NICEC journal so that you can reach even more people with your research and those practitioners that are so important. So thank you all. And whilst it is a shame we couldn't hear from Anastasia, we will find another way of hearing her work. So congratulations to all of our finalists. You nailed it, like I said, and we were very proud and pleased to read about your work. So, okay, so I do need, however, to move on to the final part of business, which is to announce on behalf of the panel. So all 5 of us were involved in this decision, and we loved reading your abstracts in the first instance and then your full articles after you submitted. It was a very difficult decision. We went back to the core criteria of this award, which was really around innovation, either in terms of methodology, but also in terms of context. So using established theory in a different way, but also around the relationship between research and practice, which was very strong, as I said, this year. So the final findings, we were so overwhelmed this year that unusually we have 2 awards. So we have a highly commended position, which is a runner-up, otherwise known as, but we've only done this, I think, once before, I believe. And then we have an overall winner. So without further ado, let me tell you where we got to. So our highly commended award goes to Dean for your amazing work in South Africa, using what we know as a very solid and established theory, but in a very different way, and give us some very clear guidance about how different schools in your context can apply and pay attention to how they do career development for different groups. So congratulations to Dean. I don't know if you want to comment or say anything at this stage. I didn't warn you of this, so if you don't, then that's absolutely fine. But congratulations with your highly commended. Okay. And then without further ado, I will move on to our overall winner. And the winner for the Bill Law Award 2026 is Ash. So congratulations to you all, like I say, very well deserved, and a perfect example of research into practice and some very clear recommendations, very relevant, topical even, but also very relevant for lots of people. Fascinating research methodology as well. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so very much. This is quite a big deal for me at this moment, because of hearing all the different presentations over here. This is I mean, the amount of work that people have put in, and some research has just stumped me to the point where, I mean, I've thought about these issues, but I've never thought it in this context. And it was really interesting to hear about it from that point of view. And from that to be selected as a winner is, I'm speechless. So thank you everyone.
And I'm sure everybody will agree, very well deserved and in such good company. And congratulations finally to all of our finalists. Absolutely amazing. I don't know if any of our panelists would like to comment while we have a couple of minutes left. I was the newest panelist, but the others had been involved in the award, many from the beginning. So they had that perspective of many years. I can see Janet's come off mute. Welcome, Janet.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say to all of those who submitted and those of you that all made to the finalists group as well, they really were such an interesting and exciting set of research to read. So we had absolutely no idea. I mean, when you're on the panel, you have no idea what you're about to receive, and everything was just, God, this is so interesting. Like, just like you say, Ash, like, yeah, this has got real application. This is great work that's going on out there, and it's so exciting to read it. So I'm very, very happy for all of those of you who presented this evening. In particular, obviously, congratulations to Dean and to Ash. Well done.
And if I could just comment as well, yeah, it was very, very difficult, as Laura's mentioned and Janet. And I think what's so gratifying as well in the Bill Law session is when people bring their passion to the topic. You know, you look at the research on paper and it's very compelling, but when you actually hear you all speaking about your research, it's absolutely super. So I just would encourage you all to use this platform. You've got something to share and talk about that you care about. So onwards and upwards with it, all of you.
Absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you sharing your research in different vehicles as finalists or winners or highly commended. So congratulations and thank you for joining us today. It's always a great event and I love hearing about all of this new research, as I know my fellow career geeks do too. Don't know if you have a final comment, Pete, before we sign off, but
yeah, sure. Well, congratulations to Dean and Ash, but well done to everyone presented. Bill Law would be delighted if he was still with us to see this happening, because your contributions are really important. But more than that, you're creating a culture within our profession of that bridges practice and research, which is so important. So well done to everybody.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a greater evening.
Thank you.
And hopefully see you all again soon. Let's stay in touch. Okay, take care. Bye.
Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well done, everybody. Bye.
Well done. Bye.